That moment when you check your gauge and realize the next gas station is 40 miles away and you might not make it. Most riders think that's bad luck. It isn't. It's math. And the math started going wrong the moment you trusted the number on the manufacturer's website. Every year, thousands of riders plan fuel stops, book campsites, and calculate gas budgets around a figure that was generated in a lab averaging under 20 miles per hour with no passenger, no wind, no hills, and no requirement to reflect your real-world riding conditions. If you don't know how that number is produced, you're not planning your ride, you're guessing. In this video, you'll know exactly how to find your real range and why everything you've been using to estimate it has been working against you. I have seen bikes come into the shop where the owner was convinced they had a fuel leak, burning through a tank 30 miles shorter than expected every single time. No drips, no smell, no visible issue. The owner thought the bike was failing. The real problem was that he had been trusting a low-speed lab-derived miles per gallon figure to plan 75 miles per hour highway legs with a passenger and full saddlebags. He was not losing fuel. He had never known his actual range to begin with. Here's exactly what is happening to your range and what you need to do about it. Let us start at the source of the problem. Unlike your car, where the EPA mandates standardized testing and forces manufacturers to publish adjusted real-world figures, motorcycle makers in the United States are under no such requirement. Zero legal obligation. The EPA does not mandate miles per gallon labeling on motorcycles. What does happen is every motorcycle with an engine larger than 169 cubic centimeters must pass an EPA exhaust emissions test. That test generates fuel economy data as a byproduct, and some manufacturers look at that number and publish it. In Tom Austin's 2011 comparison for Iron Butt magazine, Kawasaki, Triumph, and KTM were listed as not publishing those figures at all, and the brands that do publish are not required to apply any real-world correction. Tom Austin, the chief technical advisor for Iron Butt magazine, found that some brands report unadjusted highway cycle figures from a test designed in 1973 around a strictly enforced 55 miles per hour speed limit. That's the number on their website. It has no requirement to reflect your riding conditions. Start here. As a conservative planning shortcut, use roughly 80% of any manufacturer's miles per gallon claim until you have your own fill-up data. Everything else on this list is what pushes it lower from there. Here's a penalty that hits most riders at most fill-ups in the United States, and almost nobody thinks about it. Most United States pump gas contains up to 10% ethanol, called E10. Ethanol carries less energy per gallon than pure gasoline. The result is approximately a 3% fuel economy reduction per tank. E15 is becoming more common at pumps across the country, and it increases that penalty slightly. This isn't your riding. It's not your maintenance. It's the chemistry of what's in the pump. If you're comparing your real-world results against a manufacturer number that was tested with controlled laboratory fuel, you're stacking a gap on top of a gap. The ethanol penalty alone will not strand you, but stacked with what is coming next, it adds up fast. And once you know what's in the fuel, you need to know what's happening to your tires. The U.S. Department of Energy has a hard number on this. For every 1 pound per square inch of average underinflation across your tires, you lose approximately 0.2% in fuel economy. The loss scales with average underinflation, so both tires being low matters and the penalties combine. If both tires are sitting 6 pounds per square inch below spec, which is easy to let happen over a few months of normal permeation and temperature change, you have a real miles per gallon hit. Your tires are running hot, wearing unevenly, and handling is degraded before you've noticed a thing. Here's what makes this worse on a motorcycle than on your car. Your car has a TPMS system required by federal law since 2008, and it warns you when pressure drops 25% below spec. Most motorcycles still don't have TPMS, and unless your specific bike has it, there is no warning light saving you from low pressure. A $6 tire gauge is the most important diagnostic tool many riders never use. Tires lose roughly 1 pound per square inch per month through normal permeation. They also lose about 1 pound per square inch for every 10 degrees Fahrenheit drop in ambient temperature. If your bike sat through a cold winter, both tires could be 5 to 6 pounds per square inch low before the season starts, before you've ridden a mile. Always check cold at least 3 hours after riding. And the number on the sidewall is the maximum safe pressure, not the target. Your owner's manual or swing arm sticker has the correct spec. Now, pressure is one thing, but what's happening inside the engine is where it gets expensive. Your bike might start clean, idle smooth, pull strong, and still be returning 10% or more less fuel economy than it should when issues stack up. Worn spark plugs are one of the most common hidden drains. On fuel-injected bikes, misfires and incomplete combustion can confuse the oxygen sensor feedback loop. The sensor reads lean, the engine control unit adds fuel, and the bike burns more on every cycle without ever feeling broken. On carbureted bikes, the effect is more direct. In severe cases, seriously worn plugs can cause major fuel consumption increases, though treat extreme figures as worst case, not typical. A clogged air filter on a carbureted bike richens the air-fuel mixture directly, less air with the same fuel delivery, rich running every mile. On many fuel-injected bikes, the engine control unit can partly compensate using MAP, IAT, and oxygen sensors, but a clogged filter still costs you power and throttle response before you see a big fuel economy hit. And it stacks. Old plugs, a dirty filter, a stretched chain, slightly clogged injectors, none of them is catastrophic alone. Together, a bike that passes the sniff test every morning could be giving up a meaningful chunk of range on every ride. Some fixes are cheap, tire pressure and a basic service check cost almost nothing. Others, like oxygen sensors, injector cleaning, or chain and sprocket replacement cost more. But ignoring them costs you range on every single tank, and what's happening outside the engine is working against you just as hard. You load up for a weekend trip. Your partner, both sets of gear, 2 full saddlebags, top case. You've added somewhere between 250 and 350 pounds above your solo spec, depending on your partner, your gear, and how heavily you've packed. Some rider-tracked examples show 20 to 30% worse fuel economy when heavily loaded 2-up. On a bike that does 200 miles solo, that's potentially 40 to 60 miles of range you're no longer counting on. But here's the part most people miss entirely, and this is what makes it worse than it looks. It's not just the weight. Those wide saddlebags have changed the frontal profile of your motorcycle. You are paying a weight tax and an aerodynamic tax, and at highway speeds, both compound against you simultaneously. The weight penalty is most severe in stop-and-go riding, where every brake and reacceleration costs energy proportional to mass. On long, flat highway legs, aerodynamic drag already dominates. The extra load adds less penalty than it would in city traffic, but load adds frontal area, and frontal area is a highway penalty, not just a city penalty. The worst-case scenario is also the most common. 2 riders, full bags, top case, 75 miles per hour on the interstate. That's when your range drops the hardest, and the fuel gauge starts lying even faster than usual. Which brings us to the midpoint of this video, because here is where it gets interesting. If this is hitting different than you expected, hit subscribe. I break down the real mechanics behind motorcycles every week. Drop a comment below telling me what your bike actually gets versus what the manufacturer claims. I read every one. This is the one that explains every ride where your tank disappeared faster than you expected. And most riders have felt it and blamed everything except the actual cause. Here's the physics, and I am not going to dress it up. Aerodynamic drag force rises with the square of your speed, but the power your engine needs to overcome that drag rises even faster, roughly with the cube of speed. And the energy cost per mile from aerodynamic drag scales with the square of speed. What that means in practice: going from 60 to 90 miles per hour, a 50% increase in speed, increases aerodynamic drag energy per mile by about 2.25 times, and the instantaneous power your engine is working against by more than 3 times. The direction of that relationship is Newtonian physics. But exactly how many miles per gallon you lose depends on your bike's aerodynamics, weight, and gearing. The best real-world data we have comes from Iron Butt Magazine's engineering team, who ran full vehicle simulations using Honda's own model data for the Goldwing. At 60 miles per hour, 48.3 miles per gallon. At 70 miles per hour, 40.9 miles per gallon. At 90 miles per hour, same bike, same tank, same rider, same day, 28.7 miles per gallon. That's a 40% range loss between 60 and 90 miles per hour. Not 10%, not 15%, 40%. Every 5 miles per hour you reduce above 55 miles per hour can produce a meaningful gain in miles per gallon, often in the high single digits as a rough planning estimate. Going from 80 down to 65 miles per hour can easily produce a double-digit improvement. On a touring day, that's the difference between stopping once and stopping twice. There's also a factory gearing problem most riders never consider. Tom Austin's analysis found that adding a single taller top gear to the Goldwing would improve fuel economy at 70 miles per hour, from 40.9 to 49.5 miles per gallon, a 21% improvement purely by allowing the engine to run at lower revolutions per minute during cruise. Many motorcycles are geared more for response and acceleration than maximum highway fuel economy. That penalty is baked in at the factory, and headwinds compounded. A 20 miles per hour headwind when you are traveling at 70 miles per hour is aerodynamically equivalent to riding into still air at 90 miles per hour. Your drag calculation doesn't care why the air is moving relative to you. Most riders experience this as the tank just goes faster on the highway, and they move on. Now you know exactly why, and what it actually costs you in miles. But even with perfect speed discipline, there is one more factor that will silently reset everything you've just calibrated, and it changes twice a year. And the number one mistake riders make with fuel range, the one that catches even experienced, meticulous riders off guard, is not understanding what happens to their range when the calendar changes. Here's how it works. Every fall, U.S. fuel refiners switch to a winter gasoline blend with different reed vapor pressure, a different additive mix, and slightly different energy content per gallon. Some riders who track their fill-ups obsessively report a noticeable drop in miles per gallon right around late October or early November, before temperatures have dropped meaningfully. Before they have changed anything, the fuel changed. Then the cold arrives. The U.S. Department of Energy found that in short-trip city driving, a conventional gasoline engine returns roughly 15% worse fuel economy at 20 degrees Fahrenheit compared to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. For very short trips of 3 to 4 miles, that drop can reach 24%. Your ECU runs richer fuel maps during warm-up. Cold oil and transmission fluid increase mechanical friction until the engine reaches operating temperature. Tire pressure drops in the cold, compounding the penalty from mistake number 5. Everything compounds at once. And if you ride in the mountains, add one more layer. For every 1,000 feet of elevation gain, air density drops approximately 3%, and your naturally aspirated engine loses approximately 3% of its power. Denver sits at 5,280 feet. Popular routes in the Rockies and Sierras go well above 10,000 feet. On a fuel-injected bike, the ECU compensates for thinner air using MAP, IAT, and O2 sensor feedback. The rich running penalty that carbureted bikes suffer is largely eliminated, but power still drops, and mountain riding can still hurt your range. On a carbureted bike jetted for low elevation, you run rich the entire time you are at altitude, burning more fuel to make less power going uphill, with no automatic compensation. If you are on a carbureted bike, planning sustained high-altitude riding at Denver elevation and above, RE jetting may be necessary if you want proper performance and fuel economy. It's not a preference at that point. It's the difference between the ride you planned and the one you actually have. Stack it all together: winter fuel blend, cold start enrichment, cold tires, 7,000 feet of elevation, and your range estimate from a July sea level day is completely useless for a November ride through Colorado. Most riders figure this out the hard way, 30 miles short of the next gas station, on the side of a mountain highway in November. You just figured it out here instead. Now let us build the number that actually works. Everything in this video comes down to one number you need to calculate yourself, because nobody else can do it for you, and no manufacturer number will ever come close. Here's the 5-step method. Number 1, fill to the same visible level every time. Let the pump click off automatically, and do not top off inconsistently. Consistency at the pump is what makes the math reliable. Number 2, reset your trip odometer to 0 before you leave the pump. Not when you get home, not when you remember, right there at the pump before you start the engine. Number 3, ride your normal ride. Do not modify your behavior. You are measuring your real range in your actual conditions, not a controlled test. Number 4, at your next fill up, fill to the same level. Note the miles on the trip meter and the gallons pumped. Number 5, miles divided by gallons equals your miles per gallon for that tank. Do this 5 times. A single tank can vary 10 to 20% from a headwind, a heavy traffic day, or filling slightly differently at the pump. 5 tanks gives you an average that reflects your riding. Personal miles per gallon times usable tank capacity equals your actual range. Critical distinction. For trip planning, don't use the full listed tank capacity from your owner's manual. Use a practical capacity that leaves a safety reserve. On most bikes, the low fuel warning activates with roughly 0.5 to 1.5 gallons remaining, though the exact number is model specific. Treat the low fuel light as stop now, not as a sign that you have a few more miles. For long trips and touring, safe planning range equals personal miles per gallon times usable tank gallons multiplied by 85%. That 15% buffer covers headwinds, a day you are running faster than usual, a detour, and the variability of any one tank. Once you have 10 tanks of data, start segmenting: highway versus city, solo versus 2-up, summer versus fall. You'll build a personal miles per gallon range, something like 38 to 52 miles per gallon depending on conditions, and that range is far more useful than any single number because it lets you plan for the specific ride in front of you. If your tracked numbers are consistently far below similar bikes in your category, it is worth checking for maintenance or setup issues before assuming it is normal. Plugs, air filter, tire pressure, and oxygen sensor are the first 4 places to look. Apps like Fuelio on Android make this effortless. Log each fill up, let it calculate the running average, and if you see a repeated 10% or greater drop in miles per gallon across consecutive tanks, that is worth investigating before writing it off as weather or wind. Here's what this video has actually been about. Many published miles per gallon figures are lab-derived, produced under controlled conditions that bear no resemblance to your speed, your load, your weather, or your route. They were designed around the motorcycle that sells, not the ride you are planning. Most riders will look at that number today. They will estimate their next stop based on it. Some of them will run short. You will not. You now know how speed drives aerodynamic drag, how cold weather and seasonal fuel stack against your baseline, and how to build a number that reflects your bike, your conditions, and your riding, not someone else's lab. That 5-step method does not just give you a better range estimate. It turns your trip meter into the most accurate fuel instrument your bike has. The number on the website is their number. Now go find yours. Subscribe. I break down the real mechanics of motorcycles every week without the dealer spin.